Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larsen, a high-performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Yes, welcome back to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we help you elevate your energy, embody your truth, and expand into the fullest expression of who you came here to be. This show is all about flourishing and tapping into that flourish frequency. And let's face it, when you are not there, when you are instead in that place of just going through the motions, simply surviving, or working overtime trying to make things happen, it can be really hard to tune into that frequency. And if that sounds familiar, then today's episode is for you. Today's episode is both tender and powerful, and I know it's going to speak to so many of you out there who are navigating big transitions, doing the deep inner work, and simply feeling the pull to step into your next chapter. I'm joined by somebody incredibly special today, Ashley Lastovica, the radiant woman behind the lifestyle blog and brands Fancy Ashley and House of Fancy. And as a blogger, content creator, and entrepreneur, Ashley's outward sparkle is only matched by the inner light that she's cultivated over the past few years. I've had the honor of coaching Ashley for, almost 3 years now. And I've watched her move from anxiety and fear into a space of fierce self-trust, greater clarity, and deeper faith. And in this episode, we're talking about what it looks like to reclaim your energy, to stop people pleasing, and to allow yourself to evolve even when life looks nothing like you thought it would. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. What an intro, by the way. Thank you for that. I mean, it's like, whoa, love it.
Yeah, I meant every word of it.
I know, 3 years. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So, with that, actually, to give context to the listeners here, when you look back at who you were 3 years ago, what do you see? Kind of paint a picture of where you were, really, so that everybody can kind of really relate to why we're going here in this conversation today.
I mean, I was just living in like a constant state of anxiety and fight or flight, really. I mean, you know that probably better than anybody besides me and my family. But yeah, I was just living in this constant, I felt like I needed more. I wanted more than what I had going on in every capacity of my life. And I didn't know how to do it. So I was just constantly anxious about the next steps and what was going to happen and what did I want to do in my future. And I remember, reaching out to you and saying, I really want to work with you, and having our, a first kind of trial call and just being like, okay, I'm doing this. This is what I have to do to move forward. And I mean, it was an uphill battle
initially.
But I just remember she was just such a different person. It's so actually amazing to look at yourself years back and be like, wow, I've evolved so much. And even on the days when I feel like I'm not where I want to be, I can look back and be like, okay, but look where you were and look where you are.
Yeah.
It's very powerful to do that from time to time.
Yep. Is anxiety something that you've always had with you, or was it something that kind of developed at a certain point in your life?
I feel like I always just have been kind of anxious about things. My mom was sick at one point, and so I feel like a lot of my anxiety, sick with cancer, I feel like a lot of my anxiety kind of stemmed from that. But really, a lot of it just, I think, as I've gotten older and as I, grew a business and ended up supporting my family and all these things, you just start to become so anxious about things really that you can't control. And I'm such a control freak, as we know, and that's something I'm constantly working on every single day. But I think my lack of control is really what has always caused my anxiety to take a big step in my life. But it's definitely taken a big back seat to what it used to be. I mean, it's amazing to look at where it was and where it is now.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting you bring up control, because that actually is the very thing that generally stimulates anxiety, right? It's that need for control. And when you when you finally just surrender and say, like, I'm giving up the need for control, the irony is that control starts to settle in.
Right.
Control over what? Over your own thoughts, over your feelings, over your emotions, and how you're showing up. And that's the only thing you can ever control in the first place. So
Right. I
yeah,
just, control everybody and everything and all the things. So
well, when the world starts to spin around you, and let's face it, I mean, these days there's so much in the world that people cannot control, and you see it all around you, right? People like trying to grab control. Um, just in the environment that we live in these days. And again, I watch it kind of like from the outside in, watching it and seeing it and just kind of, I don't want to say laughing, but there's this part of me that's just like shaking her head going, just surrender, just
hey, like,
surrender. It'll be so much easier.
yeah. Took a
Yeah.
little time for me to get there, and I still have my moments, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I've come a long way, a long
A
way.
long way. Oh, a very long way, a very long way. Um, what were some of the beliefs that you had to let go of to allow yourself to actually start to make the shifts?
It's funny because I've always like thought that I was like I could do anything. Like I'm like I
Mhm.
can do anything I set my mind to, but deep down I think I didn't actually believe that. Like I'd be like, "Oh,
Mm,
well, like I'm not that great. I'm not going to hit that number. I'm not going to be able to make that amount of money or do that thing." And
mhm.
that was a huge thing for me. I think I always kind of capped myself. I think people around me kind of capped me. I capped myself, and then but I thought I didn't cap myself. I was always like, I can do anything, but then I like didn't do it,
Yeah.
and would deep down think I couldn't do everything I set my mind to. And I feel like that was one of the huge things that I had to realize was like, that is not true. You can do anything,
Mhm.
legit anything.
Yeah.
And I think once I realized that, and again, it took some time, but that was one of the biggest beliefs I think for me was that I really like thought I was evolved and like believing in myself, but I wasn't believing in myself as much as I should have been. And
Or
I think I
could have.
could have, could have
Let's take the should out.
should out. Yeah, could have been. I know you do like to help me with my words because sometimes I use them a lot. But I think a lot of a lot of us like look around and we
Yeah.
hear other people's opinions on things, and it's like it's really hard to like compartmentalize that. And I've actually gotten really good at that
Yeah.
now. Even like starting a new business and hearing people's opinions, it's like, okay, I didn't ask for an opinion. I'm just going to do what I want to do, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, I would have said, uh-oh, like they don't
Yeah.
believe in this, so like maybe I shouldn't believe in it. And that's just not the truth.
Yeah. You bring up a really, really great point that I'd love to kind of highlight for the audience here listening, and that you thought you had a certain level of belief in yourself, but then you had results that weren't necessarily matching
Right.
that belief. Like you had great results. I mean, you've had a very successful business all along, but there was this other level that you were wanting to get to, and you thought you had the belief, but the results weren't there. And I think the point that I want to make there is that oftentimes we're in denial about where our beliefs actually are. We're saying consciously on one level, yes, I believe this. But until you have the results, you've got to like actually recognize there is a part of you that is on a different level. And
Yeah.
it's generally the part of you that's actually running the show. And
Right.
that's a lot of the work that we do, is to make the unconscious conscious, to like
Right.
start to put light on what we don't realize is actually running the show for us. And I was the same place. Back when I was in my own burnout and experiencing it, I didn't realize I had placed caps on myself either, and did not realize that there was a whole other world out there, that I could continue to evolve into and expand into. And it wasn't until I started realizing, oh, I actually am carrying some different beliefs because my results are showing something different.
Right.
So, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not bad. It's just being able to say, oh, okay, so what do I want to believe? What do I
Right.
choose to believe?
Right.
And I know one belief in particular that I've tried to actually reinforce over and over and over and over again for you and probably every single client that I have is that everything is always happening for you for your greater
Yes.
growth and evolution.
And that is one of my favorite things to say to people when I'm giving advice.
Yeah.
But even now, like ever since I learned that from you, like if my plane's delayed or if like something happens or if there's like literally everything in my day that doesn't go like how it's supposed to or how I think it's supposed to, because it's actually going how it's supposed to, how I think it's supposed to go. I think to myself, okay, but like, how is this happening for you? And almost every time I can like find a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm great, you know,
yeah,
look
exactly.
for it. That has been one of my favorite things you've taught me. I do love it. I always say that to everybody who's having an issue. I'm like, but how is this happening for you? Like,
exactly. And realizing that is a belief. I get to choose. I get to choose that it's happening for me. So if that's the case and I'm choosing to believe that, then I get to find the reason why it's actually happening for me.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's instantly, as soon as you choose that belief, that actually is the belief that allows you to move forward. Because until then, it's like you're always going to stay kind of spinning in this cycle of, like, why is this happening to me? Like, why does this keep happening to me? It's like, oh, well, you asked for, growth. You asked for courage. You asked to expand. Well, so of course these things are happening for you.
Yeah.
Like it's showing up.
You got to go through like the hard stuff.
Yeah. And this is a big one too, that I want to kind of ask and really get a little insight into what shifted here for you. When you shifted out of fear and into faith, how has that actually made a difference for you in both your life and your business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of what I was doing in my daily life and everything was based on like fear. And like, I'm assuming we're going to get more into like that topic, but
yeah,
I spent a lot of my days just worrying about like what was going to happen and not like living in the moment. And I think once I just decided like, okay, we cannot live this way. Like we cannot live this way anymore. Me, as in me, I'm talking to myself. I would like wake up and like tell myself these things. Once I realized that, I think everything changed, right? Like, and you just have to like almost have that like aha moment where it's like living in fear is not getting me anywhere. It's literally making me in the like worst depression ever. And I was so unhappy. And I just had to make a decision that like I didn't want to live that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had a tough couple of losses, right?
Yes.
Personal losses, a friend.
Yes.
And
Yeah. My best friend passed away. My best dog passed away 2 weeks before she died. I sat with her while she, died. It's like, it's hard to say that without making it sound like weird, but, I sat with her and it's actually, I always say like something I never thought I could do, like you don't ever think you're going to be able to do that. But when she knew she was going to die, she said, I'm worried nobody can do it. And I'm like, I can do it. So I did. I sat with her every day, and it was one of the biggest like honors of my life, obviously, was sitting with somebody while they're, going through that. But it was really hard. I had a really hard time coming back from all of that. Very hard to come back from that.
And how did you show up for yourself every day during that time? Was there anything in particular that like just kept you going?
When I was with her.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking to myself, like, this is what friends do, right? And this is like what an honor it is to be able to be with somebody in these moments of their life. And I think every morning I woke up and I was with her kids and like her husband and her parents. And I just, it never really crossed my mind that it like wasn't where I was supposed to be. You just do it. And just like, I didn't even have to tell myself, anything. I just was like, okay, this is like what you do. This is what friends do. And, it's like in sickness and health, like we always used to say we were like platonic soulmates. It's like, that's what you do. Like you love your people. And it was like one of the biggest like honors of my life was to like be there with her. But it was also really hard to come back from, like, still.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about that. I know that was a tough time to be going through all that. And, I think we'll dive a little bit deeper when we come back from the break. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. And also that shift. How did you come back into your personal power? That's what I really want to dive into next. All right.
That's good.
We are back. So thank you once again, Ashley Lastovica, being here with us today, talking about really stepping into your fierceness and finding your flourish, right? And before the break, we were talking about a little bit about what was really kind of going on in your life 3 years ago. And you had experienced a couple of really difficult losses and then trying to navigate. I think actually also you were moving at the same time. There's a lot going on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like right when I started working with you, technically, we decided to move to the beach in
Mhm.
Florida. And, I love renovating houses. So I was like super excited. I found this house and it was like so great and just, and like everything like went wrong. Like it was just like, I mean, even the week we were like supposed to sign the closing papers, like I got COVID, like everybody in the family, like everybody got sick. My son got sick at camp. And like, it was just like, then he got like, it was just like everything was going wrong. And then we got here and, I was so used to having all these great guys that did my houses in Texas. And I actually brought one of them here to do the kitchen, but I had a really hard time getting the same quality of work here in the sense of like being on time and like doing what they need to do. And we had a time crunch because we needed to have a place to live. So it's just like little things like that. And then very quickly after we got here, we weren't even sure if we wanted to stay here. And it was just a lot. And then my friend ended up,
Yeah.
getting really sick. And then, just kind of like everything, I felt like everything, I moved here and a lot of things fell apart. But again, at the time I was very much like, why is this happening to me? Like, why is this my life? Like, I mean, it's so like, like Eeyore on, just like every day was just like, it was just
Yeah.
like so terrible. But then when you look back, you're like, okay, well, like all of these things happened because like now I am where I am. But at the time you don't have that perspective. Like all you can think about is like getting through the day. And,
Yeah.
I'm actually super grateful for like the really hard stuff, especially like after I moved here. Cause when we moved here, we actually decided really shortly after we were going to sell the house. And, it's crazy because we bought this house at like the height of the market. And then of course, like everything kind of changed and the
Yeah.
house ended up sitting on the market for a year and a half. I mean, it's just like but again, it all worked out because I had to have sold, we would have moved. And I'm so happy where I am now. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I didn't do that. And, timing is everything. And I always say that like, it's, perfect timing. But at the time I couldn't see that. I just kept thinking like what this holdup is, caging me into this place I don't want to be, but I'm so grateful I
Yeah.
stayed. So, yeah. So then I kind of came back from her and after she died, and I feel like everything just kind of like
Cave
fell apart.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was, I mean, everything was just a mess. And
Yeah.
and then of course, like the person that was my favorite person that I would talk to about all this stuff was gone. So it's like you
Yeah.
go from having your best friend who you talk to like 18 million times a day, and then she's gone, and then you're going through a really hard time, and you're like, okay, what do I do? So it really kind of tested me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I would say I probably went through one of like the worst years ever
Hmm.
for me, and you can attest to that. Um, so you walked through it with me, but you know, I had to do it. I had to have all those feelings and like moments and all the. I mean, I do wish a little bit that I wish it was a little bit shorter of a time frame, but what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It feels like a really, really long time when you're in it,
Yes.
and in hindsight, you can look back and say, well, it wasn't really that long. Although, yes, do you wish it would have been like 60 days and you were through it? Of
Like a
course.
week, I don't know, just like a quick, like, "Here you go, like, let's be done." But
Yeah.
I learned so much through it, but
Yeah.
you have to, like, go through it, and then you can get that perspective, like, you're not going through it and having that perspective at the time.
Yeah.
Now that I went through that, I'm like, "Okay, well, I can do anything." And I went
Yeah.
through such a hard time, and I'm like it's like my life was, like, falling apart in, like, every capacity, and then at the same time, I'm
Yeah.
having to get on Instagram and pretend like, I'm happy
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
running
Because
this.
you have an outward business.
Yeah,
It's
I'm on
very
camera
much,
every
yeah.
day and, it's just like I remember followers of mine would be like, "You look so your eyes look sad." And I was
Yeah.
like, "No, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great." And they'd be like, "No, your eyes, like, they look sad." And,
Yeah.
and it's funny, even my sister said it to me one night. I was like, "Okay, that's, like, so weird," 'cause you think you're, like, look happy and you're good. And
Yeah.
people that know you like realize it. And a lot of these followers have walked with me for, 14 years and they've,
Yeah. Wow. 14 years.
yeah, they've been with me since my kids were babies and
Yeah.
we've done this together. I mean, my son just got his driver's license today and I'm like laughing thinking like some of these women were with me when he was like a toddler and they've watched
Wow.
my kids grow up. So it's really crazy to look at that. I mean, I think they're feeling like their children, like, or that one of their kids is also growing up because they've watched so much of their life on
Yeah.
social media. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting because I think, again, what you're describing, I'm hearing the same theme again of like that control. Like nothing was within your control during that time.
Yeah.
Nothing was within
Not
your
one thing.
control.
Not
And
one
the more
thing.
you grasped for control,
Oh,
like it's like the more it pushed stuff away, right?
yeah.
Um, and so I know one of the topics we've talked a lot about is the difference really between being in circumstantial power, where your circumstances have all the power. And in that case, they really did initially have all the power over how you felt and how you thought, even initially. And then stepping into your own personal power, taking that power back and finding it within yourself and not letting your circumstances dictate how you felt or thought or the actions that you were taking at that point in time. Was there a point in time where that kind of started to really land? Like when we first started talking about it, did it sink in? Did it make sense for you, or did it take some
Yeah.
time? And
I feel like it made sense for me, but I was like so stuck in this like nothing's going right and like my life sucks and like it's never gonna
yeah,
be better and like I was just like so like I look at myself now and I'm like, Ashley, like really? Like that's not even who you are. Like
yeah,
I've always been pretty positive and so it was really one of those. I mean, I was just like it was like I mean, there were so many things going on. I haven't even like got into everything, but like financial, like life, you know, kids, like marriage, I mean, everything, like losing a
yeah,
friend, like, there was just so much stuff and running a business.
yeah,
And I just remember one morning I woke up and was like, okay, like we're done. Like we're done doing this. Like we've done this for a really long time. And like we are getting on camera today and we are filming a reel and we are going to be actually happy. Like legit, I can remember the moment I just was like, we're doing this. Like
yeah,
that's it. That's it. And it was almost like I just had to like snap myself out of it. And
yeah,
it was just a moment where it was like I had like my mind was like, okay, Ashley, like we're done. We've like,
yeah.
done this. Like it's time to move on. And literally from that moment on, everything changed for me. Like everything. Like
Okay.
I just,
This is beautiful. I want to highlight this for all the listeners out there. There's something really important that she did. She made a decision.
yeah,
Decision is the first thing that moves things forward. Napoleon Hill talks about this in Think and Grow Rich, that decision is the first thing that allows you to start moving forward. And the word decision has the word like incision in it, meaning to cut off. So
right,
once you made the decision, that this is it, we're done. We're going on and we're having fun. You cut off all those other thoughts, all those other emotions that were in contrary to that.
right,
And so that was the moment, that was a defining point for you because you made decision. And decision is a masculine energy. It's one of the things that allows then the feminine energy to actually move forward, because until you make a decision, you're actually, well, technically, when you don't make a decision, you're deciding to stay where you're at. So you're
right,
making a decision even though you don't realize you're making it.
right,
And that's one of the things when people say, I don't know what I want, it's like, decide, make a decision, listen to your heart, which is
right,
the feminine. Well, what would I really love? What do I desire? And then follow it up, back it up with masculine energy. Okay, I'm going to honor that desire that's in my heart, and I get to decide that I get to have that.
right. Yeah. I mean, it is a crazy thing. And like when I look back on it, I'm like, how did I like just become so like evolved overnight? But obviously it was not overnight. It was years and years of stuff. But I think I just remember like you get to a point where you're like going through a really hard time and you're just like, I cannot do this anymore. I mean, you
Yeah,
could just live like that forever. And I try to talk about this on my Instagram stories a lot. Just like if you know, one of my favorite like quotes from the Noah Kahn song, Call Your Mom, is like, every light turned off can be turned on. And you have
Mm,
to make the decision yourself to turn
yeah.
on the light,
Yeah.
because that is, it's such a powerful thing. And I was like living in the dark, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't live like this anymore. It's just like not who I am. I'm not happy. I'm not showing my kids like a happy person. And it, now I have, you know, hopefully showed them what it's
Yeah.
like to take control of your life. And like, I'm still doing that every day, consciously, you know, taking back control of my life and moving towards what I want in my future for myself,
Yes.
for my family, for them, and also like what I want business wise. I mean, it's really a cool thing to be able to do that. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
overwhelming. I had a little cry about it the other day, but you know,
And what do you do when you feel overwhelmed? Let's
you
take a deep breath.
deep breath. And I, yeah,
That's the first thing you do is you take a deep breath. So
yeah,
for anybody listening, when you're feeling overwhelmed, take a deep breath
probably
because
a
that will,
few deep breaths.
yeah, a few deep breaths, but ground yourself, come back in because it's the first thing when, when we are spinning out of control, it's like, and you start to then get pulled back up into the circumstances, right?
Right,
Like
right,
it's so important to be able to not look at your circumstances for the proof of what's possible for you. Your
right,
circumstances are only telling you where your thoughts have been and where your emotions have been and what's been in the past that got you to where you are now. For you to be creating something that's next, you've got to be willing to disconnect from what your circumstances are telling you and envision something bigger and better. And I know you've gotten really good at that. You're very creative and you've had a lot of ideas popping into your
yes,
awareness. Um,
yes.
and I know you're also somebody, this is one thing I don't think you've ever struggled with is taking action. Like you are definitely an action taker for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, I'm like, if I want to do something, like I'm gonna do it,
Yeah.
because, you know, and I think a lot of that too is, after my friend passed away, like I think I live my life very like YOLO, like you only live once, and like
Yeah.
you don't do something, like you don't want to regret it, like you're gonna
Yeah.
want to regret it. And so, like if I have an idea, I'm like, okay, I feel like we need to explore this. If I want to do something or like take a trip or, you know, go somewhere, do whatever, I just am
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna do it. Like this is just like you get one life. Like
Yeah.
it's like just take action and go.
Yep.
And
And then
yeah,
when you back it up with that belief that every decision I make is a good decision, right? That's
yes,
the other belief.
that is
Every
my favorite.
decision I make is
That's
a good
another
one.
one of my favorites of yours. Every decision I make is a good one, because you know you listen to other people too, right? And people are
Yeah.
like, and you, that really can, like, I think cap you too, is they're like, well, I
Oh,
don't know if that's the right decision. And I came to a place where I'm like, okay, but like I am the only person that needs to care about my decisions. Like you don't need to care about my decisions. Like she doesn't need to care about my decisions. If I
yeah.
think it's a good decision, then it's a good decision, and I don't need somebody else to tell me that it's not, because
Exactly.
matter to me anyway. So
Yep.
I'm like, yeah,
Yep. And once you've made that decision, that you've made a good decision. So it's a
yeah,
double decision, right? It's like I've
yeah,
made the decision, but now I'm also making the decision that every decision I make is a good one.
yeah,
Then it goes back and anchors back into. So of course, everything will always happen for me for my greater growth and evolution. So
right,
when something happens that makes me want to question if I made a good decision or not, I get to go back and anchor into that other decision and
right,
realize, like, okay, what am I going to take away from this that lets me continue to move forward no matter what?
right. And
So,
don't you feel like people a lot of times when you think you made a bad decision, it's typically, in my experience at least,
mhm,
because of what somebody else says or what somebody else thinks.
yeah,
And you know, at the end of the day, like you just have to get to a place where you're like, I am living for myself, and
yeah,
that is what I'm making decisions for. And I think, you know, once you kind of like let the weight of what other people think go away, it totally helps. And that was a
yeah,
huge thing for me. Like I've made a lot of big decisions in like recently that I'm sure people would not agree with. Well, and they've told me, some of them have told me, but I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
That's on you, and that's coming from a place of like your fear, right? Like
yeah,
a lot of people's issues with decisions you make are like them feeling like in a place of like, well, I would never do that. And it's like, yeah, but that's because you
yeah,
are scared, or you, and you don't, can't take that on. Like you don't need somebody else's
exactly.
you don't need somebody to tell you your decision was a great one. I think a lot of us think that we feel better if somebody else is like, hey, like it's a good decision. And then if somebody says it's not, you're like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
I just got to a point where I'm like, I know it's a good decision because it was in my mind and I did it. And so like, we're good.
Yeah.
And it's changed everything for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit on something really important there. Is that other people are really, I think people have good intentions when they try
Totally.
and warn you or talk you out of something, but it's only because they can't see it as possible for themselves. So they're
Right.
acting from their own place of fear. And
Right.
it is being able, and you do this beautifully now, Ashley. It's like you separate out what their fear is from your fear. And like, no, I can feel my fear. And more importantly, I can feel my faith and move
Right.
forward.
Well, and like, it's like feel the fear and do it anyway. Like that's what you do. You got to like hold your
Yeah.
nose and jump and just like know
Yeah.
that this decision was a good one. And that's just, I mean, that's just kind of how I roll now. And it has changed everything for me. And I like
Yes.
it. I like living that way. It's fun to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And,
Yeah.
you know,
So you said something there that's really important. You said something like, I have to do it for me, for myself.
right.
And I think that's something that a lot of listeners, especially if you're a mom, you might be able to relate to that. Like so many moms I see and work with, like they're sacrificing things for their children, but meanwhile, it goes back to the old adage, you got to put on your own oxygen mask first, right? You've got to
Totally.
honor yourself. What
Totally.
At what point did that like settle in for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say in the past probably like year, I had my kids like really young. I got married
Yeah.
young. I had a baby at 25,
Yeah.
another baby a year and a half later, and I was growing a business and I was alone a lot. I had a husband that traveled every week, and so I was really like in the trenches. I was just constantly like I was never putting on my oxygen mask first, like ever. I
Yeah.
was always like frantic. Um, and I think I think once I went through everything I went through, I realized, okay, Ashley, like you have to live for yourself because you also have to show your kids what a like life that you want them to lead is it looks like. And I think
Yeah.
somebody who's constantly stressed and constantly frantic and trying to do all the things but can't seem to get themselves in order, that is not showing them the life that you ever want for them. And I will say, like, once I started taking care of myself and like self-care, and like I have specific things that are just like non-negotiables for me. I have to do them.
Yeah.
Like it's just part of my week. And I will say no to things to make those happen. And I think
Mm.
that's who I've become now. Before I would have always like done something else. I would have taken on something else and like been like, okay, well, the kids want to do this, so I'll do this. I think at a certain point you have to remember that like you are the person that they are looking up to too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and if you're not taking care of yourself in whatever capacity, that is not what you want your kids to see you as. And I lived that way for a really long time. And I think I did a good job of kind of like maintaining it.
Yeah.
But I finally got to a point where I was just like, okay, I have to do things that like work for Ashley also. And
Yeah.
I think some moms would probably disagree with that, but it's again, like that's just what I've realized. And I'm, I think you have to take care of yourself in like so many different capacities, especially when you're a mom, when you're a business owner, when you're, you know, like
Yeah.
all the different things. It's a lot is expected of women.
Yeah.
And I think you have to take the time to do the things that like bring you joy, whatever that may be. I mean,
Yeah.
and you have to take the time to like you always say, put on your oxygen mask first. I think about that all the time because,
Yeah.
even I'm having a moment, I'm like, okay, oxygen mask, we'll do everybody else in a second. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a great point too, because your kids are learning through watching you. You know,
right,
we think they learn by what we're telling them to do, and that's a little bit of it, but more so they learn by how we show up in life and
right.
what we're doing. And if you're sacrificing your own happiness, they
Uh,
pick up on that.
oh,
If,
totally.
yeah, and if you're living life in fear, they pick up on that. And if you
100%.
think about it, it's like, how do I want my children to grow up? Do I want them to, you know, wish that they had done XYZ but never did? And you going after your dreams and you standing up for yourself and you saying yes to you is showing them it's okay for them to do the same too
Right,
as they grow up.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially, I have obviously a son and a daughter, and so, I look at both of them and I'm like, I haven't been a great example the past when I was
Mhm.
going through my hard stuff about what I wanted them to like experience from like a parent, or even as like them to like have a spouse someday or whatever, whatever it is. Like, I think when I finally realized, I'm like, I want to be an example for them in like whatever capacity. I want them to look at me and be like, yeah, my mom like did all these things because she just wanted to. And
Yeah.
I don't ever want them to feel like I'm capping them in any capacity. I'm like, I try to explain to them, like, you can do anything you want. Like, there is literally no cap for you. Like, you can do anything that
Yes.
you want to. And I think that, that's not, I don't think that's, especially like in obviously like other generations, and I'd say my generation, but I mean, I'm 41. That wasn't something that was totally like said to me. I mean, my parents were very like, do what you want to do, but it wasn't like it. I don't think people were telling me that every day, and I wasn't like watching that happen. And I think it's so
Right.
different now, right? Like social media and all the things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I realized too, I need them to see me as like somebody that they look up to and are like, man, she's like awesome. And I don't know if I can
I know
say
what
that.
you were about to say there.
I know, can I say that? I don't know if I can say bad.
Well, we'll keep it clean, but I know where you were going. A
Yeah.
bad something, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I love a
I love
little
it.
cuss word from time to time.
I love
But
it.
yes,
Yeah.
I want them to like think of me as that. And I hope that like one
Yeah.
day they will look back, and because they're teenagers, so I feel like they've been old enough to kind of like watch the
Yeah.
me evolve through a lot of this
Totally.
stuff. Yeah.
Totally. And Ashley, you are ever evolving. And I want to dive into that a little bit next. We're going to take another quick break here. But let's talk about what's next for Fancy Ashley as you
Okay.
evolved into your next stage.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Welcome back. I am here with the amazing Fancy Ashley, Ashley
Yep.
Lastovica. And we were going to dive in next, I think, here and really kind of talk about what's next for Ashley. For me, it is always about evolution. And there is no end to evolution just by the nature of the word evolution, right? So you have come so far in the last 3 years, but you're just getting started. Like, what's next? Have you thought about this? Like, I know when we first started working, one of the things we did was an exercise about who is she, that when you think about that next version of yourself that's really wanting to come through you, not that you're wanting to be, but that's really wanting to express itself through you, and to start to get clarity around that for yourself so that you could start showing up as her. Well, you've evolved into that person now. So when you think about who is she and that question next, what's that next evolution of you? When you think of her, what comes to mind?
I mean, I just think she is so powerful. And I think she
Mm,
finally realizes that about herself. And I
mm,
think it took a long time for me to realize that, but I have realized that in so many different capacities. Like, even when I meet people, and, I had this conversation with this woman the other day, and she was like, you're just like so dynamic. And I was like, wow, that's how I always wanted to come across, right? Like,
yeah,
I am the person that I always like wanted to be. And I think that comes across, like, when you walk into a room, you want people to be like, okay, I want to hang out with her. I want to talk to her,
yeah.
and want to know what she has to say and all the things. And I think, I'm starting another business. And then I might be starting another one. Beth knows I'm like we joke, I'm like a serial entrepreneur, but I always have ideas. And
Yeah,
when I feel really strongly about something, I feel like it's just time to, like I always say, like, hold your nose and jump. Like, you just got to do it. So,
yeah,
that is who I am. I love obviously what I do, and I love the community of women that I've created. My goal in life when creating this, when my kids were young,
yeah,
was I really wanted to, like, I always say, if one person feels less alone by seeing my stories every day, like, then I've done my job. If I help somebody dress for an occasion, I've done my job. If I help somebody feel like they are not alone in dealing with kids and life, and now for me, teenagers, and, like all the things, I always wanted to be the authentic person that I am.
yeah,
And I will say, when you meet me in person, like, I am who you get. Like, who I am online is who you get in
yeah.
person. I don't feel like that's the same across the board with, obviously the influencing world, but that's just, I made a deal with myself years ago. That was who I was going to be. So I
Yeah.
think she's just becoming even more of a like powerful woman that's going to do all these things that she's always wanted to
Yeah.
do. Um,
It's interesting you said that, Ashley, because when you think back to what you were saying earlier about how people could tell when you weren't happy, like that your eyes
yeah,
were set and everything. So it's interesting that at that time in your life, you weren't being your authentic self.
right.
And it was so evident to people. So how do you know now? Like, how do you tell when you have moved out of alignment with your authentic self?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, first of all, I don't feel good. Like, so
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing. So like my energy level is always like, high, like
Yeah.
typically. Like I'm always like, I'm kind of like always like up, like I'm happy. I want to like, let's get moving, like let's do all the things.
Yeah.
And so if I feel like low, or if I'm just like, I don't want to do anything today, then I think to myself, okay, we feel this way. We need to have some positive vibes, whether
Yep.
that's, talking to somebody who's going to bring me up, going to the gym, getting some exercise.
Yeah.
Typically I always like, I will get ready for the day. It's like a huge thing for me. I started doing when my kids were little. Like I always get ready every day because I
Yeah.
think it's such a key thing to like making you feel better. But typically for me, when I'm out of alignment, I feel like my energy is just like off, and I can just tell. I'm like, okay, this is not who we want to be today. Like this is not,
Yeah.
and I'll give myself the time. Like sometimes we can have that. Like I kind of had like an off day, a couple off days, but then like yesterday I was having a really off morning, and then like I had a call with you, and then I had a call with like for like a business, and I was like, we're back up. It's like we're good. So sometimes it's
Yeah.
just a small amount of time, but I can always tell when if I wake up and I'm like, okay, we need to like do
Yeah.
some like bring us back to like where we want to be and who we want to be. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
see somebody out in public and then be like, man, she's like not happy,
Yeah.
how you want to come across.
Exactly. And people read energy. Like they will read your
Totally,
energy.
totally.
It doesn't matter the words coming out of your mouth. They're picking up
Oh,
on energy, even if whether they know it or not. Right.
yeah. Well, and I do it too. I mean, like I find
Yeah.
myself wanting to be around people that have good energy. And we've discussed this, like you and I've discussed, like it's kind of interesting for me. I feel like more people have fallen into my life that are
Yeah.
the energy that I want to be around. And for a really
Yeah.
long time, I felt like I didn't have that. I had people that their energy was really like sucking.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. So
Oh,
recently I felt a lot, I want to attract in the energy that, um, I don't know, the energy that I want to attract, and the energy that
yeah.
is coming to me too. If that makes
Okay, you're
sense.
bringing up another great point. A really great point here. It's it's this so important that you are being the energy that you wish to be because you are the one that is actually attracting the energy back to you, right? And
Right.
a lot of people will fall into that pattern of commiseration
Right. Oh yeah,
because it makes
totally.
them feel better. But when we commiserate, like let's face it, the word misery is in the word commiseration for a reason.
Right.
And it doesn't have anybody raising their vibration. It doesn't have anybody feeling better in the long run. It just
Right.
actually makes them feel more comfortable.
Right. Right.
And that's not the same thing as feeling like that flourish vibe, the flourish frequency.
Right.
It's
And
totally different.
it's such an interesting thing because I found myself like I've looked back on this and I'm like, dude, how did I ever like hang out with those people? Like, or how did I ever hang out with that person? Like, they were a suck. Like I call it
Yeah.
like a suck, like an energy suck. And that's, you don't want to be with people like that. Like you want people that like are make you feel like up and happy, and
Yeah.
and you want to be able to do that for other people. And again, we all have our moments of like being an energy suck, but like if that's just who you are, that's a problem. And
That's a
I
problem.
just, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's not who I want to be. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. No, you want to be the person that comes into the room that holds the energy that can powerfully shift what is showing up around you.
right.
And I know you're experiencing that right now. We've talked about that. Like you have
Yeah,
different people that are entering your life now that are actually matching that new frequency that you've been showing up with.
right.
And
Right.
that's not going to stop. That's going to keep happening. And then when you do that, and I think this is such an important point also, is that when you hold the frequency, you give others the ability, the opportunity, not the ability, the opportunity to rise up to meet you.
Right.
And some will and some
Mhm.
won't.
Yeah.
Some will want to stay because they're not comfortable with it, right? They're going to stay in fear and they're going to stay in their comfort zone and they might fight it initially,
Right.
right? And that's when you got to hold strong more than ever to your chosen frequency. And
Right.
you hold that frequency so they can make the shift if they can work through their own challenges, or they may end up having to fall away.
Right.
And
Right.
either way, you haven't lowered yourself in the process just to make other people more comfortable.
Right. Yeah. People pleasing. I don't do that anymore. We're done with
Yeah.
that.
Nope.
Like, yeah,
No
that's
more.
that's yeah, that really doesn't get you anywhere either. So
It really doesn't. It really
no.
doesn't.
Mhm.
So what is next for Ashley? You said you got a couple new
Yeah,
businesses
we've got some
that you're
stuff in the
percolating.
pipeline. I'm doing all the things I like always wanted to do. Like I recently decided to take up golf. I'm trying to grow my businesses into tangible things that I can,
Mhm.
have and like create the future that I want. I have so many, goals like financially and like life goals.
Yeah.
And it really helps to like speak about those to people too. And again, that's I think where you find people that are on the same energy level as you or the
Yeah.
same frequency. Like you can talk about these things and you're like, that's awesome. And I think some people like again there's like the fear, but I always look at things as like everything is possible. And I've
Yeah.
really, I think once I realized that, I'm just like, okay, like we're good. Like we're just gonna do it. So I'm moving, I'm like steamrolling ahead. That's what I'm doing. I am just like having a good time and having fun while I'm doing it. And,
Yeah.
just trying to keep the energy level high and, I don't know, just like want to be the best version of myself. I used to think turning 40 was going to be like the worst thing ever, but I have to say, like, in my 40s now, and I'm like, it's literally it's the best. Like, I'm loving my
Yeah.
40s. I feel like they've been some of my hardest years, but also some of my, I mean, I'm actually only 41, so I guess it's 2 years I'm into this. But they've been some of my hardest years, but also like some of my best years. I've had some of the best moments, and I think you're more comfortable with who you are at 40. You
Yeah.
finally just become the person that you want to be, and you're like, again, you like lose the people pleasing, and you just feel confident in like who you are and all the things. And that has been such a huge thing for me. I mean, I was great in my 30s, but like I was raising young kids and like growing a business, and now I feel like I have the opportunity to do like even more things because I feel so much more confident in like who I am as a
Yeah.
person.
Yep.
And not looking for other people for validation on like if I'm good enough. Cause like I know I'm good enough, like obviously.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly. Oh, you just keep hitting on all the points. This is fantastic. You keep hitting on really key things here. And I say this over and over again in this podcast and show, is that you can't have more on a foundation of not enough.
right.
And you just hit the nail on the head there. It's like, I know I'm enough.
Right.
I know I'm enough. I know I'm good enough. And I still get to have more. And I
Right.
still get to be more. And I still get to show up as more. And
Right.
that's the key right there is like because you've reached the space of understanding and really embodying your enoughness, that's what's opening the door up for what's next,
Right.
for the next evolution of you. Because other until that point, when we come from that place of I'm not enough or I'm not doing enough or I'm or sometimes it's too much. I'm too much, right?
Right.
Like we get those thoughts in our heads too. But if you're coming from the space of not enoughness, by the law of abundance, you will continue to get more of that not enoughness
Right.
coming back at you. You'll
Right.
just keep seeing more evidence of I'm not enough.
Right.
And so it just never changes. So I love that you've stepped into that space of enoughness because now it's like the more just it's going to expand and expand and expand. And I can't wait to see what's next.
And I think I would rather be too much than not enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and because that's like somebody's opinion of you. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's like,
Totally an opinion. Yep.
um, like would rather have people think
Yeah.
that than not enough. So it's
So
just a thought.
I know you said that next version of you is powerful. If you were to pick two
Yes.
more words that describe that next level, that next evolution of Ashley, what would be two more words that you would pick?
Okay, I'm like, what did we decide? Well, so okay, so something I really am working on is, this was actually on your Instagram today, and like a friend said this to me recently, but it was like slowing down. So I'm trying to
Oh yeah.
slow down,
Yeah.
to speed up in a sense. So I would say like
Yeah.
powerful, calm,
I
um,
love that for you.
powerful and calm, because I think you can be both. And I think
Yeah.
that's always been a hard, it's always been a hard line for me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think what would be, and just like amazing, like living my best amazing life. Like that is really like what I want.
Love
I
this.
want to just be the best Ashley ever. And we always call me like Ashley 2.0 or Ashley
Yeah.
2.0. What are we at now? Point something.
2.025.
2.025.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but just it's fun to like look at yourself and be like, gosh, and like look where I've come, and like look at who I am now. And like I am so grateful for where I am today, even though it's not like what my life, nothing about my life is what I thought it would be, like at
Yeah.
all. I think once you can get over that, if you're
Yeah.
like, okay, it's better in so
Yeah.
many capacities, it's great. And you can look back on, the really hard stuff, and you're like, okay, like I can do this. And then when hard stuff comes again, it's not going to take you as long to get through it, because you have the perspective of knowing
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
get through.
You just hit on something really important there is now that you have now that you've been through it and navigated it with consciousness, right? Like
Right.
really had an ability to take a look and be consciously aware of what you were doing as you were going through it. Maybe not all of it in the moment, but in hindsight, you can go back and look at it and see and put all the puzzle pieces together. Now you've
Right.
just shortened the time frame. So when the next time life brings to you, excuse me, what might appear to be an obstacle, you have the ability very quickly to shift it and see the opportunity that's there,
Right.
instead of just seeing the obstacle, because that's the way it works. Like there's always going to be some contrast that shows up in our lives, because that
Right.
it's the very contrast that actually allows us to have the next growth edge, right? When we come
Right.
into it. So, and I love calm for you because
I know.
for me, I feel this intense power in the calm.
Yeah, that's what I think that's like a thing, and I'm
Yeah.
realizing. But do you have a third word for me? I don't know. I'm like,
Let me think
I'm
about that one actually.
yeah,
Well,
we can
we'll
like
talk about that one next week.
yeah, yeah, we can
I like
brainstorm.
the ones that you've picked though. I really do.
Yeah,
I
I
really
probably
do.
need to pull up my thing and see what words we have, but I'm
Yeah.
always thinking of like new words about myself. But yes,
And
I think
you can pick more than 3 if you want.
yeah. Well, I think powerful is like a huge thing for me, because that was like one of the things I never thought I was. And like now I realize it. And I'm like, okay, like we're just going with this, because powerful
Yeah.
can mean so many different things in so many different
Yeah.
ways. And, I want to be
And
like
you stop
an inspiration to people too. That's something else. That's another thing.
totally.
I want
Yeah.
people to look
I
at it
think
and be
you've landed in power because you stopped trying to force,
yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah.
right? And that you
Yeah.
gave up that need to control. And that's when you landed
Yeah.
back in your power. So
Yes.
before I can't believe the hour is almost up here.
No,
That went really fast.
I know.
Before we wrap, I'd love to give you the space to speak directly to the women who've followed your journey for years, and also for those who might just be discovering you here through this show. What would you love to say to the woman who's watching you walk through all of this and who might be facing her own fears?
I would just like to tell you that it gets better. I share that all the time. And, when you think you're at your lowest of lows, like you think that nothing's ever going to get better and you can't come out of it, and you're not going to, like you will. And again, like the song, like all lights turned off can be turned on. Like
Mm,
you will be better. Like it will get better. I have DMs with people every single day about this topic. And you
mm,
know, I had so many days of like desperation, and just like I cried every day for like a long
mm,
time. And I just want you to know, like, it gets better and life can be good again. And like sometimes you just have to make the
mm,
conscious decision to say, like, we're done doing this, and we're gonna be happy, and we're gonna be happy. And when
mm,
you say that, your circumstances will change, because you're not like letting like we say, the circumstances take power over your life. You're actually making your
mm,
mind making the decision to have it be good. And I think if there's anything I could tell you, like when you're going through a hard time, like I've been through a lot of really hard stuff, and I still continue to go through things even now.
yeah.
But you know, you're not alone. I mean, so many of us are like living these lives, and we have gone through a lot of things. I mean, being a mom, being a business owner, all the things, like being a wife, all those things,
Yeah.
they're all hard. And you just have to remember that you're not alone. And I hope that when you come to my space, you feel like that. And that's always been my
Mm.
goal. And I love you guys. Like you have been such a blessing to me and to my family, and it's honestly kept me going on some of my hardest days, having a place to show up and be the authentic Ashley that I am. So
Well
thank
said,
you.
Ashley. Well said. Well said. Well, thank you for joining me here today for this powerful conversation. And for all of you, thank you so much for tuning into this conversation. I hope it has reminded you that your evolution is allowed and that flourishing doesn't require perfection. It just requires presence, courage, and the willingness to show yourself over and over again. So if something resonated here for you, if you feel seen, inspired, or just a little more free to be becoming who you are, we'd love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of the episode. You can share it in your stories on Insta, tag us over at Beth Larsen Coach or at the Fancy Ashley with your biggest takeaways. And until next time, just remember, you don't have to have it all figured out to flourish. Just take the next aligned step and trust that she is already inside of you, waiting to rise. Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larsen. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your Flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsenCoaching.com. That's BethLarsenCoaching.com, Larsen with an E.